With the innumerable responsibilities that she actually shoulders, our next guest speaker is truly an inspiring person. She is a seasoned security professional with over 14 years of experience ranging from application security to infrastructure and is now dealing with the DevSecOps. She works with various communities such as InfoSec Girls, OWASP, WOSEC, and has a razor-sharp focus on increasing female participation in the InfoSec space. She helps women grow in the industry by mentoring, sponsoring, and educating them. She has broken a lot of stereotypes in India and across to train students and women for free. She was a keynote speaker at the OWASP Global AppSec DC in 2019. She has been felicitated with the Global Cybersecurity Influencer Award and also Cybersecurity Women of the Year Award. And it just doesn't end there. She has also been listed as one of the top women leaders in this field of technology and cybersecurity in India by InstaSafe. Today, she's going to enlighten us on how to kickstart DevSecOps with open source tools. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome as she now comes to your screens, the one and only Ms. Vandana Verma.
Thanks for joining the session today. Today's talk is about DevSecOps. And when we say DevSecOps, why do we need it and how to build that? And to build that, we've been talking about we need tools, people, culture, so many things. So we'll kickstart with why do we need tools? And if we need tools, what all tools can help us in setting the base, setting the framework for it? Let me talk about myself. I'm Vandana Verma Sehgal. I am one of the global board of directors for OWASP, which is the Open Web Application Security Project. I'm also president for InfoSec Girls, which is a diversity initiative in India, wherein we train women, students, and people who are interested in becoming part of cybersecurity. We also try to bring the spark that they need to stay in the cybersecurity. I also provide free trainings at different conferences around the world. That's about me. So when we say DevOps, DevSecOps, we cannot leave behind the SDLC, which is Software Development Lifecycle. So before the advent of DevOps, organizations executed the product security checks at the final stages of the life cycle, which is, we call it as software development life cycle. Everything used to be done and then security comes into picture. Because the focus was predominantly, was deemed that we will make the application ready and then we will give it to the security and then we'll go on to the production. But that created a lot of frictions between the security team and other teams. Then came a point wherein everybody started hating the security team. People started understanding that if we start hating security, the breaches will happen. The breaches will keep happening. And it's not that making an application security is only the security team's job. It is everybody's responsibility. So we'll all have to work together towards it. So then came DevOps into picture, wherein Dev and Ops started working together. Earlier, there were three teams, Dev, Ops, and Security. All were working in silos. And suddenly, Dev and Ops started working. But what is DevOps? I'm talking about these jargons. So if you don't know, DevOps is the modern way of delivering applications faster and with higher quality to meet the needs of the business. Now, when we are targeting applications to go live, features to go live in 1 day, 1 week, or even earlier. I know there are organizations which are pushing code to production, let's say 72 times, which is like a huge amount of code, so many pipelines going into the production. So we need to be sure that when we have this much of speed, velocity, we'll consider all the things that are need to be considered. keeping service level agreements and security operations, everything in mind. Now, this is what happens when we say, okay, DevOps is working, but then security is not working together. Security thinks that DevOps is pooping something and we are just cleaning that. But ideally, if we think practically, that's not the case. There has been always a blame game between the teams. Earlier, there was dev and ops. They were all working in silos. Then came security. Again, security team was working in silos. Even when I talk about my experience, I was also working, like my team was working siloed at one place when I started working in the security industry. But now the whole shift is happening. The blame game is getting removed, because if we keep blaming each other, we cannot move ahead. The dev team is focusing on delivering new application features as quickly as possible, like with a lightning speed, often giving might be a little lesser thought to the security. When we talk about operations team is making sure that stability and reliability is there. And again, speed of delivery and other things are also sometimes sidelined. At the same time, when we talk about security team wants to focus on reducing the risk as much as possible. So if these three different perspectives don't work together, there will be a conflicting goal, wherein organization has a simple goal that application has to be ready on time, it has to be stable, it has to be secure. Because if these three goals don't meet, we are not going to serve the purpose which the organization needs. So this is what we all have to work. DevOps has to work with SecOps has to work with Dev. So all the teams have to work in a harmony. Without DevOps with security, we cannot have that harmony. Now, when we talk about DevSecOps or DevOps with security, what is that? So DevOps or DevSecOps is the way of approaching IT security within everyone. Everyone is responsible for security mindset. It involves injecting security as early as possible, integrates security tools and the whole pipeline, creating security as a code culture, promoting cross-skilling, so many things into one picture. And we can also say that DevSecOps is approaching DevOps through the lens of security. So this is how DevSecOps look like. Like, we are trying to integrate security in each section of DevOps. We are not missing out security at any phase. And that's what we call it as shift left. Rather than doing the security in the end, we are doing the security at each phase. Starting when we are thinking of architecting an application, when we are coding an application, when we are designing it, when we are putting it for testing or QA, or we are actually putting it to production. So doing the whole operation, security, DevOps together. So what are the DevSecOps core principles? When we say automation, without automation, we cannot attain DevSecOps. Because when there are so many releases which are going to the production, we have to make sure that they are securely going to the production. And with manual portion or with manually checking the security for an application, it is never going to be easy that we can say that now we are going to go to the production and we're just going in one day. So automation has to play a role here. And culture plays another big role. If we have a good team, we have automation in place, but if we don't have the right culture in an organization, we are never going to attain DevOps or DevSecOps. So the key is to remove friction as much as possible within the whole process, and we have to have the right culture in place. When we have the culture, when we have the automation, we have to measure that, are we doing the right thing? Are we attaining the maturity? We are at a certain level, but we have to move towards the maturity. So we have to keep measuring ourselves. We have to talk to each team and understand what they are doing, whether they are feeling that, yes, we are going through the right path, and keeping intact everything. Dev needs to know what ops is doing. Ops need to do what security is doing. Security needs to know that there is a feature which is coming on. There is an application which might be coming to us. There is some change in the code. So all of this has to work together, has to collaborate together, come together. If we don't have that together, there will be a lot of concerns, a lot of issues which will be there. Now, how do we take that forward? Because we have been talking about these are principles, this is DevSecOps, but if we don't know how to take it forward and with the right set of tools, because we all know that commercial tools are or private tools are not easy to buy, and if an organization is ready to buy any of the tool and they buy it, but then it's of no use for their organization or enterprise or the environment that they have, then it's as good as buying no tool. So first, we need to understand what's the appetite of our organization, and understanding that yes, this is our need, and that's when can we have a POC with the open source tools, understand if they are beneficial for us, and then setting the framework, setting the base, going ahead with the private tool post that. So here I can say that all of you can relate to that. These are the things when we say DevSecOps pipeline, we all consider all these steps as a framework, wherein we start with requirements gathering. Once the requirements are gathered, then we go ahead with threat modeling, source code review, software composition analysis, vulnerability testing. We do automation, defect tracking, and so many things. But do we have a project tool which can help us in binding all of them together? Absolutely. There are so many open source tools which help us in doing the whole DevSecOps pipeline work. We don't have to go ahead and let's say buy the commercial tool in the first go itself. And it's not feasible as well. You can relate to it. So as an open source contributor and the person who's really preached for open source, I have created this list starting with the requirements gathering, that yes, even for requirements gathering there are projects which can help us. So there's one project called Security Rat, which is a tool which can assist with the problems of addressing the security requirements. And it is more of more of a tool which or a project which can simplify the requirements. There are thousands of requirements, but then it can simplify. Okay, this is the requirement that we have to cover, this is the requirement that we have to cover. It keeps a track of that. Now when it keeps a track of it, it also provides the automation process for noting down any changes that might be there for any of the requirements. At the same time, there's another project called Security Knowledge Framework by OWASP. That's again a wonderful project which helps in managing projects like checklist. It has a beautiful checklist for mapping the requirements. There are requirements which you have for a project and you want to note down somewhere. You don't have to track it in an Excel sheet. You can just onboard the project and then keep updating the requirements there. There are pre-listed requirements which we can leverage. So we can just go ahead and start using that. Now, when we have gathered the requirements, now we know, okay, these are the requirements that we have to work on. If there are any changes, we can actually take a look at those requirements. What comes next? What could be there that we would need? We need threat modeling, wherein we will go ahead and assess the risk for an application. Now, for threat modeling also, we have certain projects like Threat Dragon, which is amazing project. And it helps in the process of discovering potential security vulnerabilities early in the pipeline. If you can see on the screen, there's a whole diagrammatic way that it highlights the threats and perform the threat modeling, and we can see that all the red zones are, or the red lines are the risk areas which we have to address. Now, is there any other project? So there's another project called Pythm, which is another threat modeling project in the form of a flow diagram. So it goes step by step. Now we are doing this, we are doing that, and here we see the risk and we have to address that. And when we see it in a form of a flow diagram, we tend to address it early in the pipeline itself. And a sequence diagram, and most important to all, it shows the whole threat area, threat landscape. So we have gathered the requirements, we understand our threat landscape, and we know if something happens to our application or that particular feature, what could go wrong. And we can fix early in the pipeline. Now, once that is done, what else is pending? Code and build. Now, code and build phase is where security and component creation combine. It is where the benefits of shift left strategy with security as a code comes into picture. It provides the real time feedback for the coding. Or we have the software composition analysis. We can actually get the real time code commit information. All the imported code from the open source libraries or from any third party components can be checked for vulnerabilities in this particular phase. By considering threats and risk early in the pipeline, we can remove the risk in a production. And I would say that as per one of the research, there is huge amount of code. I would say 96.8% of the code on the internet is all open source. So we'll have to make sure that we address our code vulnerabilities as well as open source vulnerabilities that could be there as part of our application. So let's talk about source code review. Let the code that we develop as part of our application. How can we address the vulnerabilities in the source code review? So there's a project called Code Pulse, which is an amazing project which provides the continuous coverage of our code, and if we are doing any penetration testing, it covers the whole arena and point out that this is the way, this is the place which we have left out, and let's go ahead and cover that particular area as well, because there's a continuous challenge which penetration testers or as a security testers we face, that yes, this is the portion that has not been covered, or we sometimes tend to lose that area. So Code Pulse actually highlights this, that yes, this is the area that we have left out and we need to cover. Another project is beautiful project which is called Cheat Sheet Series. So Cheat Sheet Series is a beautiful creation which provides the vulnerability details, how a code snippet will look like if it's vulnerable, and how we can remediate that code. And how about customizing a specific language code? So there's another project called Go Secure Coding Practices Guide, which is specifically for Go code. Now, when I started getting to know that there is a Go code, I was very reluctant in going ahead that path and learning about it. But then when I got to know that there is a Go code security practice guide, it made me feel more at ease, wherein I can go ahead and start looking at what it has to offer and how I can actually plan the way towards secure coding in Go code. Now, once we have the code which is rightly coded and we have found the bugs in the code, another thing we have to address is that if there is a specific language code that we can actually, or a specific open source tool that we can leverage as part of our application pipeline. Here, I've listed some of the tools or projects which helps in scanning the code early in the pipeline. Like for Python, we can use Bendit. For Ruby and Rails, we can use Brakesman. And there are so many other projects which we can leverage. Now, once we address those challenges, do we have to address all those concerns which are there as part of pre-commit hooks, like sensitive information such as AWS keys, access token, SSH keys, which are there as part of the code? And if we don't find those keys early in the code, what could go wrong? We know that if there is a key in the code and somebody gets hold of it, and our code is public, they can access any of our accounts and they can play around with it. We've seen the breaches have happened because of that. So we need to address that also as early in the pipeline. So these are some of the projects which are amazing projects which helps in finding the vulnerabilities or the SSH keys or the keys early in the code. The one I can say that the one on the top is Talisman, which checks the sensitive information in the files before commit or push activity. So we can try that. I've tried Git secrets. I've tried detect secrets. There are so many other wonderful tools which we can leverage. So I just listed down some of them here. Now, we've checked for requirements gathering. We've done threat modeling. We've done the source code review. We have done the pre-commit hook check. How about checking the third-party libraries or software composition analysis? And I also mentioned that 96% of the code as part of our applications or on the internet is all open source. So it becomes even more important to address this. And open source components have become integral part of the software development lifecycle. So we have to resolve these concerns which developers are facing, which are identified in the project dependencies, and checks check all those things which come as part of components which we are using. And we can say that might be we can say that it's using components with known vulnerabilities. Even OWASP has top 10 list, and using components with known vulnerabilities is part of it, wherein it's A9. So it becomes even more important to fix that. So dependency check is one beautiful project which figure out the vulnerabilities in our dependencies, find the version, product, then what could be the CVE related to it. So dependency check actually downloads the NBD database, maps the vulnerabilities with the libraries, and then gives the result. And its accuracy is around 70 to 80%. And then we can fine tune the project. At the same time, there's another project called Dependency Track, which is a unique and highly beneficial, approach for supply chain management. It can track applications, libraries, frameworks, operating systems. It can also be really well integrated in Jenkins, GitHub, and all other projects. It can find components with known vulnerabilities, out of date components, modified components, and the most important, license risks, because license risk is another big problem that we have to address. Now, software composition analysis is done. Then comes the phase wherein we are doing the vulnerability testing. And for vulnerability testing, is there any project which can help us, automate the vulnerability testing? So there is a project called OZAPZ, which is Z Attack Proxy, which can very well be integrated with QA projects or QA tools. And we can find the vulnerabilities early in the pipeline when the application is ready to go to production. So it's becoming one of the favorite projects for QAs as well, because it can be beautifully integrated into Selenium. It has a beautiful API list which can be called into the products and production, and we can start using that. And we can also use it at the cross-platform level. Apart from that, there's another project called OpenBas, which is an open vulnerability scanner for web applications, and it can find the vulnerabilities and report it beautifully. So when we know that there is an open vulnerability scanner which is there, and which has the capability to perform the unauthenticated testing and authenticated testing at the same time, it is as good as buying a commercial tool or a private tool. So it's really good for providing high level and low level industry vulnerabilities which are there. Now, apart from OpenBas, there's another one which is Docscan. So Docscan is for Docker scanning, and it's a plugin based system for discovery, audit, and reporting of vulnerabilities in the Docker containers, and it is able to scan the local and remote Docker installations. How good is that? Because now we are all moving towards modernization and using APIs, Docker containers, Kubernetes. So we have to address all those challenges which are there. Now, when we have found the vulnerabilities, if we don't report them, if we don't fix them on time, it's as good as not even finding them. So with defect tracking, we can address those concerns. So defect tracking, we have Defect Dojo, which is a beautiful project with integration with multiple commercial projects as well. And it takes the reports, give you a view as a pen tester. I can see that, yes, there are duplication of defects or there's a new defect. And for leadership, I want to look at the metrics. So it provides beautiful metrics, as you can see on the screen. And with metrics, I can take out the report and present it to the leadership that we have to fix these bugs and we have to address it in this quarter or this month or this week. Another defect tracking project is Archery Sec. So Archery Sec is one such tool which not only has good integration with most of the tools which I mentioned with Defect Dojo, but it is also integrated with Zap, OpenBas, and many other projects. Apart from that, there's another project called Jackhammer. This is, again, another beautiful project which can do static and dynamic analysis with its inbuilt vulnerability management tool. So we can actually leverage all these projects for running the vulnerability scanning and managing the vulnerabilities at the same time. Now, we've done all of that. How about addressing the defensive controls? If we have a firewall which might be there in front of our application, how good is that? How beautiful would it be to have a firewall in front of our applications and addressing all those external concerns that we see? So mod security code rule set is one of the project which has a set of generic attack detection rules for use of like mod security and compatible web application firewalls. And it can protect applications from insecure web application design. It can highlight, okay, there is a problem with the design. It can also help us in detecting the security early in the pipeline, wherein it can detect malicious traffic and raise the concern, raise the alarm, and we can block that. Now, we have addressed that. There's another important piece that we have to address when we are setting up a DevSecOps pipeline is how do we manage the knowledge for the developers? So for knowledge management, Devlop project is one beautiful project which does the live testing of DevSecOps platforms, projects, tools, and you can take a look at it that the leaders have done multiple iterations of or series of talks and demos on the call itself. Then the other project is Pixi, which is a vulnerable API to show you that this is how the vulnerable APIs look like. And we have to address the concern in a certain way. Now, once we have the defensive controls, we have some knowledge, but how about using the automation? And there's no harm in having an automation. Automatic checks can actually help us in finding the compliances, infrastructure, setting up the infrastructure, and reporting the bug as early as possible. And a comprehensive set of automated set of checks and tests can provide a pipeline with continuous assurance. It can facilitate the confirmation that the system changes haven't impacted the system ability to get to go to the production or to meet the requirements that it should be. So we need to embrace the automation. We need to have a security team not conditioned to work in silos, but work with development team and operations team. Make them understand that this is how this project look like. Can we have this project as part of the pipeline? And if there are vulnerabilities, I can help in making you understand and address it. Wherein security team can be a friend to them, can be a support system rather than stopping it. So and automation can also help the process work faster. And when we are going with sprints, we are going agile, we have to go fast early and figure out the vulnerabilities earlier. Now, when we are moving towards containerization, talking about infrastructure, so we'll have to have to address all those concerns which could be there as part of the infrastructure. So containerized solutions like Docker are very popular for building the infrastructure. And we know that we use Docker images and sometimes not tend to update them. So there will be vulnerabilities. But when we have solutions like Clear, Docscan, they help in scanning the raw Docker images and gives us an exhaustive report highlighting that these are the bugs which can be there as part of the code. So we can actually scan the code itself early. And we can also check it before even going to the production. Another important aspect is secret management. And we all know that it's a common practice followed by developers and administrators, and even there are other people who store the credentials in the configuration files and environment variables. So if there are environment variables in which the credentials are stored, they can lead to exposure of credentials for the public. And we know that if there are credentials abuse, it can create a lot of chaos for an organization. And as per one of the research firm, Forrester, 80% of the breaches happen because of credentials abuse. So now when that's there, That means we have to address all those concerns. So these are some of the tools that I've highlighted that can help in the secrets management. We can also run the compliance as a code, wherein organization needs to comply with controls for HIPAA, PCI, SOX, and we have to address the infrastructure as a code vulnerabilities as well. So we have to make sure that we use projects which can help us in finding the compliance as part of the infrastructure, as part of the application. And InSpec is one of the tools which can help us in performing these tests, as we only need to supply just certain information, and then it can actually perform the whole test in our infrastructure. And it's very simple to use. And similarly, Service Spec, DevSecOps hardening framework, and Kitchen CI, all of these are wonderful in finding the compliance as a code. And compliance in the code. Another important way is that when we talk about addressing the DevSecOps concerns and setting up the pipeline, we need to keep taking the feedback from development team, operations team, and security team. We all learn from our mistakes, and we have to address all those concerns which are being raised by different teams. If we don't address them on time, we're going to be in trouble. We will never be able to set up a mature DevSecOps pipeline. So at the same time, cultural shift is also important. Developers need to lead the way to the leadership, wherein we have to showcase that yes, this is important, and leadership needs to understand yes, it's the need of the hour, and we have to have address these concerns. We have to make sure that there is a transparency. If there's a tool that cannot be bought, let's tell the team that yes, this is not possible to buy this tool. If there is a silo that is there in different teams, we have to address that concern. And for development operations team and security team, we all have to work together and showcase that, yes, this is what we need as part of the pipeline, and it is a requirement. And with the results, because we have to speak in the way the leadership understand. We all have to sit on a table and clear out that these are the requirements for our own organization. This is our environment, and this is how we can work towards attaining the maturity in DevSecOps. This will also lead us to making security as everyday process for all the teams. And when everybody knows that security is not an afterthought, we can consider it as part of the first class citizen. We all can work towards it. It becomes part of our own daily life. And it also creates more champions in different teams, which address the concern that whether I'll be invited to the Scrum call or not, whether I'll be part of the new feature or not, whether I'll be getting to know about this feature later on in the life cycle. All those kind of questions can be addressed if we have champions in development team, operations team, management team. And then can we empower dev and ops team to deliver faster and secure products and applications? Absolutely. We can enable them on the security portion. We can tell them that, yes, these are the things that are required. We can have a stabilization. We can have a short life cycle. We can have increased velocity. We can also have less defects when we have a secure life cycle or secure DevOps pipeline. We can measure our own growth. And then we can have this kind of a DevSecOps architecture wherein we have pre-commit hooks, developers are happy, we have a nice code repository, we have vulnerability testing in place, we are managing it with artifact repository, we have testing at the QA staging process, and then at the production also, we are testing it, we are monitoring it, we are not leaving the alerts and the logging activities. So this is what I had to say about the DevSecOps pipeline with the coding and with the projects as a tool. You can reach me on Twitter and LinkedIn. At any point, my DMs are open on Twitter. I'm there on LinkedIn. You can send me a connection request. And I'm open to feedback or any inputs that you have about this talk. These are some of the nice articles that I read. Thank you so much.